cry God for Harry, England and St George, as Henry V said, or at least so Mr Shakespeare would have us believe. But who was St George, and why did an English king invoke him? I'm Rick, a man of many historical hats, and your guide to the past. Today we're going to look at St George. I'm going to unpack him, why he became important to medieval England, and how he became England's patron saint. But first, a quick aside. Now, you probably know that St George is the patron saint of England, and that is what I'm going to talk about today. But he's got a lot more than that under his hat. He's also the patron saint of Aragon, Catalonia, Georgia, Lithuania, Palestine, Portugal, Germany and Greece, of Moscow, Istanbul, Genoa and Venice, second only to St Mark. He's the patron saint of soldiers, archers, cavalry and chivalry, of farmers and field workers, riders and saddlers, and he helps those suffering from leprosy, plague and syphilis. In recent years he's been adopted a patron saint of the scouting movement too. So what a busy boy he must be. So whilst you might think of St George as an English icon, do remember that he's not from England originally, and that we share him with people across the world. Something I take heart in. Even though he's popular, well known, associated with honour, bravery and gallantry of the highest order, there really isn't a great deal known about George of Lydia. Some people have even suggested he either never existed or that he's based on an earlier pagan hero. Regardless, it's usually accepted that he was born in the 3rd century, was a Greek from Cappadocia in modern day Turkey, and was a Roman soldier, possibly an officer, possibly a member of the Praetorian Guard, an elite force who protected the emperor. He was executed possibly tortured and executed for refusing to give up his Christian faith, or for refusing to take part in a sacrifice to one of the other Roman gods in around 303 CE. However, enough of me, let's speak to some experts. People think of St George as coming to England with or after the Crusades, and those who have been to the Holy Land as pilgrims or as crusaders, as I have, certainly venerate him. But St George was known to the people of England long before my Norman ancestors came to this country. Saxons knew of him and celebrated his feast day, 23rd of April, from the 9th century onwards. But Saxons knew of him before that. The saint is also mentioned in the writings of the Venerable Bede. Remarkably well travelled is our George. St George really gained popularity with we milites, the military elite comprised of nobles and knights who protect and rule the country with the Crusades. He appeared at the siege of Antioch in 1098, which gave heart to those on the First Crusade, and appeared the following year as Crusaders captured Jerusalem. During the Third Crusade, between 1189 and 1192, it said, though I wasn't close enough to see, that King Richard the Lionheart was visited by St George and took him as his personal protector, and that the saint appeared to some of his soldiers to inspire them to victory in battle. It's certainly true that with the return of Richard and his forces, the cult of St George became much more popular in England. St George is not just popular with the knights and nobles, he is a fighting man's saint. During the start of these long wars between England and France, 100 years or more it seems to be fighting for control of the French crown, he's shown himself to be a protector and a champion of England. In Cressay in 1348 he appeared to soldiers and gave them heart, and that made Edward, third of his name, appoint him as patron of a knightly order called the Garter. We started to bear his banner into battle and to wear it upon our breasts. At Agincourt, great victory that it was, good King Harry gave a rousing speech, but if I'm honest, I was a bit far back, I didn't really hear it all that well. But he called on St George then to offer us protection and strength. After that, the Feast of St George has been elevated to be one of the most important religious feasts in the calendar. And St George is now firmly the patron of England. Edward III, he nominated him such, but for many people, Edmund the Martyr or Edward the Confessor had claimed by tradition to men's hearts. Now, it's firmly the case of George. St George is a popular saint amongst fighting men, but he's popular amongst others in need of protection too. St George is one of the 14 holy helpers. These are a group of saints venerated both together and singularly for their help and their protection during times of trouble, times of pestilence. And they kind of originated during the Black Death, which reached its peak in Europe about 1350, and which lasted a goodly long while before and after that, and it affected life greatly. We still have outbreaks of plague and summer pestilences, and disease is always with us, particularly on campaign. So patrons of soldiers and of the sick, St George is busy, all right. You may know of the story of St George and the Dragon, a very popular tale, and I suspect more of a morality play than being an accurate representation of an event from the saint's life. The tradition tells that a fierce dragon was causing panic in the city of Salini in Libya at the time St George arrived there. In order to prevent the dragon from devastating the people of the city, they gave 2 sheep each day to the dragon. When the sheep were not enough, they were forced to offer a human sacrifice, selected by ballot. When the time came that it was the king's daughter who was selected, nobody would swap with her, nobody would take her place. She was prepared, ready in her finery as if for a wedding, and then was chained to the rock, ready to be eaten. St George happened by and saved the girl by slaying the dragon with his lance. The king was so grateful he offered him treasures as a reward, but St George refused, giving them instead to the poor. The people of the city were so amazed at what they'd witnessed that they became Christians and were baptised. This version of the Dragon's Tale is from the Golden Legend, written in English by Robert Caxton in 1483. The people of the town had begun to feed the dragon 2 sheep every day to prevent it attacking them. When the sheep failed, they began to give 1 sheep and 1 man. The king decreed that the human sacrifice should be chosen by lot. This continued until the king's daughter was selected. The king tried to bargain, but the townspeople were adamant that she should be delivered to the dragon just as many as their children had been. As Caxton wrote, "Then did the king do array his daughter as if she should be wedded, and embraced her, kissed her, and gave her his benediction, and after led her to the place where the dragon was. George, who was passing, asked the lady what was happening. She told him about the dragon and begged him to leave before it appeared and killed him too." Caxton continued, "Then said St George, 'Fair daughter, doubt ye no thing thereof, for I shall help thee unto the name of Jesus Christ.' She said, 'For God's sake, good night, go on your way, and abide not with me, for ye may not deliver me.' Thus they spake together. The dragon appeared and came running to them, and St George was upon his horse, and drew out his sword, and garnished him with the sign of the cross, and smote him with his spear, and hurt him sore, and threw him to the ground. And after said to the maid, 'Deliver me your girdle, and bind it about the neck of the dragon, and be not afraid.' When she'd done so, the dragon followed her as it had been a meek beast and debonair. The princess led the defeated dragon to the city, causing much panic and alarm, until George told the people not to be afraid. 'Nay, doubt ye no thing. Without more, believe ye in God, Jesus Christ, and do ye be baptized, and I shall slay the dragon.' The king was baptized, followed by all of his people, whereupon George killed the dragon and had it dragged out of the city, requiring 4 ox carts to do so, and his body thrown into the fields. The king set up a church of Our Lady in St George. On the site there sprang up a fountain of living water, which healeth sick people that drink thereof." That is Caxton's version, but another tale closer to home says that St George fought and slew a dragon at Uffington, that the creature's poisonous blood was so deadly that the flat top hill on which he slew the worm is bare of grass still. Perhaps, when you are able, a place for you to visit and discover for yourself. Well, that was just a bit of a look at St George and how he came to be England's patron saint. I hope you enjoyed it and found it interesting, but there is a lot more to explore on the themes of religion and belief and national identity. So if you'd like me to do more, please do say. In the meanwhile, if there's any parts of our shared past you'd like me to explore, any questions you have, please let me know in the comments below. In the meanwhile, you can follow me on Facebook, Twitter or Instagram if you'd like to keep up to date with what I've got going on. If you like this video, please like it. If you would like to join me again on a jaunt to the past, please subscribe. And till next time, stay safe, stay happy and take care. Farewell.